Hi, everyone. We should be getting started in just a few minutes. We're just going to let everyone start trickling in today. But if you feel like it, please put in the chat. We'd love to know where you're dialing in from today. And if there's anything you're excited about learning about today, please put that in the chat. We'd love to hear from you all. We've got Kentucky, Oklahoma, New York City, London. Everyone's coming from all over, which we love to see.
Everywhere from Canada, Saudi Arabia. Very exciting.
Every corner of the globe today. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're so excited for you to be joining us today. My name's Emily. I'm from the Drata team, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. We're excited to dive into the rise of Agentic AI, what GRC leaders need to know to lead the next era. Today, we're going to explore how Agentic AI is reshaping governance, risk, and compliance, and what this means for GRC leaders who want to stay ahead. We're going to have a fireside chat between our two speakers, as well as leave some time at the end for a live Q&A. So please, throughout the conversation, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A panel at any time, and I'll make sure that we leave some time at the end to cover as much as we can. And we've got an SME on the line to also help answer questions during the session. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. Joining us today, we have Bhavin Shah. Bhavin is Drata's VP of AI Product, and we also have Cress Franz, who leads AI Startup Partnerships at AWS. Welcome to both of you, and I'd like to hand it over. We'll start with Bhavin just to say a little something to get us going.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Emily. Hey, everyone. My name is Bhavin Shah. I'm really excited to be here and sharing with you and talking about GRC and AI interaction. I lead AI products at Drata. So everything AI at Drata, it's me. I'm excited to be here. Passing it on to you, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Bhavin. Thank you, Emily. I'm Cress Franzen. I lead our AI Startup Partnership team in the AWS Global Startup Program. At AWS, we love startups. I have the privilege of helping startups like Drata build the latest innovation with AWS, go to market with AWS to grow demand, expand their reach, and ultimately, we hope to help grow top-line revenue by helping startups accelerate sales opportunities. I'm excited to discuss AI agents and business strategy today. Hope we can help you understand how you can explore new ideas to use Gen AI.
Great. Well, thanks. Yep. And then, well, I'll hand it right to you, Cress. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right. We'll just jump right in. We're living in an amazing time of change. Generative AI capabilities enable a new wave of innovation, and every industry, we believe, will feel the impact in coming years. Transformer architecture, foundation models, all these things unlock possibilities that we're only beginning to explore. Initially, Gen AI was a fun party trick, I would say. You give it a prompt, it gives you something back. A paragraph could be an image, a line of code. Single turn, reactive, and it was stateless. It's powerful, but you needed to tell it what to do. Well, then we started to see the emergence of early AI agents that leverage reasoning frameworks, such as React, to reason, separate tasks into discrete steps, to access data, to integrate with APIs, even to take action via function calling. Most early agents are primarily used for simple, well-defined tasks, such as fetching answers to a customer query. And now, more and more, we're seeing multi-agent systems transitioning to autonomous functionality, seamlessly being able to execute multi-step workflows and dynamically adapting to changing environments. It sounds like science fiction, but it is what we are seeing happen. Agents can now tackle far more complex scenarios, like diagnosing, remediating IT issues, maybe generating and deploying even a full-stack app from a user prompt. And of course, right when you're in the middle of a webinar is when your computer tries to reboot. So I hope that I can stay with you here. This is great. So now we're going to talk about how enterprises are doubling down on agents. Gartner predicts over a third of all enterprise apps will be powered by Agentic AI by 2028. At least 15%, they say, of work decisions will be made autonomously by agents by 2028. And this transformation is underway. Likely, you're here today because you see the potential to leverage Gen AI for your organization to enhance productivity or maybe enable better customer experiences, to increase security, to increase the trust that you can build within your organization. We see several agentic use cases. Looking across all these industry key verticals, there's a large range of challenges that we will believe will be transformed through agentic workflows. One example, life sciences, biomarker discovery generates these massive data sets. It requires enormous compute power. With Gen AI, we can deploy agents that develop accurate reviews of therapeutic data, orchestrate complex testing, and with Amazon Bedrock Agent Core and other tools, we offer security controls, observability, and managed infrastructure. So, those teams can focus on their subject matter expertise, just like you can focus on your subject matter expertise. I feel that these examples, we could also talk about financial services. There's compelling applications in underwriting or media and entertainment. You may be focused on content management. So depending on what you're focused on, you may see different opportunities, and we'll talk more about that as we go on. But as I said, these examples illustrate the potential of agents. This is a relatively short list. The possibilities are extremely broad. There's a lot that we can do. The AWS vision, to make sure that we establish that, we obsess about customers. We seek to invent and simplify so our partners, like Drata, and you, our customers, together can build the best solutions to create value. We see the future enabling millions of agents. These are agents interacting with tools, with data, with humans, and with other agents. We invest to make AWS the best place to build, deploy, and scale the most trusted and performant agents in the world, which leads us to our latest release that I mentioned. Amazon Bedrock Agent Core enables you to build and employ AI agents securely, at scale, using your preferred agent framework. You can use the best foundation model for your needs, and all without you wasting time managing the underlying infrastructure. As we always say, let us do the undifferentiated heavy lifting in infrastructure so you can focus on what you're really good at and the special effort that you can do. So in the fast-paced flurry of innovation, it can still seem, it can still seem too difficult to get your agents out of experimentation and into production. Gartner, as we mentioned, predicts that over 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled in the next 2 years. So how do you avoid falling prey to the many challenges facing these agent deployments? So first, to deploy AI agents and tools, organizations need a specialized runtime. Unlike typical apps, agents can operate over a much longer time horizon. They could run for hours on a certain part of a task. Agents may also process multiple modalities. They might need to call different tools and services. So they're different than previous apps in many ways. Second, the underlying LLMs, the models, are stateless. Agents need to bring memory in order to retain context or learn from past interactions or to provide personalization. Next, you need identity and access control to ensure, I'm sure is important to everyone on this call, to ensure that you can securely deploy an agent that can only interact with the tools and data sources that you authorize. And then finally, operating agents requires purpose-built observability tools. So to summarize, operating agents in production requires a different set of infrastructure, different set of capabilities and controls. For a moment, just to mention, we've learned from customers, especially as we improved Amazon Bedrock with customer feedback, you want more control. You want the ability to more easily use open frameworks with AWS. We heard that message. Agent Core embraces these leading open frameworks to accelerate your time to value. So getting agents to production, what do we need? What do we need to simplify the deployment? I just mentioned some things, but let's look a little bit more at those. So despite the open frameworks and protocols, getting agents to production is still quite challenging. This is because of the dynamic autonomous nature of agents, like I mentioned. So looking at these building blocks, first, we need to build, configure, and scale a runtime, an execution environment. It's not just about scaling compute. We also need to maintain guarantees around security and isolation so that data from one agent doesn't leak into another. Then we need the ability to remember past interactions, like I talked about memory. That could be a short, turn-by-turn conversation, or it could be long-term learning to help agents improve over time. Next, we need identity and access controls for the agents, the tools, the data sources throughout all the system. We need fine-grained controls to ensure that agents can access only authorized systems and data sources. We also need a way to discover and interact with custom tools or data sources that we might bring in. One such tool might be the browser. Just like you and I use a browser to act in the world, agents become much more powerful when they can use a browser, whether that's consuming data from the web, researching, or having the ability to even take actions on websites. Finally, you need to be able to see into the black box. We need telemetry and observability for every interaction, including the intermediate steps of an agentic workflow. We can't be left guessing. We need security, auditability, governance. With these in mind, we can see how much work it takes for you to build your own and do it yourself to build agents that you can deploy in production. It's no surprise that many of these pilots will fail. So back to designing Agent Core. Bedrock Agent Core offers modular services. We allow you to mix and match everything that you need to get agents into production. So these primitives cover the major needs we discussed, from the basics, runtime, memory, over to browser tools and observability. And like I mentioned, I run a partner team. I love AWS partners. ISV partner solutions can integrate with Agent Core in scenarios here where you need partner-specific functionality. I'll just take a brief moment to zoom out. We recommend, so if you're thinking like, wow, that's cool, we got Bedrock Agent Core. If we zoom out, there's a whole agentic AI portfolio that we offer. You should not start with tools though. We recommend that you identify your team's capabilities, your specific needs, and look at that fingerprint. What do you have? What do you need? Don't assume that you have to start with a particular tool necessarily. So you may benefit from the top of this slide, the top of the stack, where there's fully ready to use apps like Amazon Quick Suite, Kiro, or I would even extend that to say partners like Drata, where they offer a full solution that has generative AI under the hood, so to speak. For other teams that want to build their own custom solutions, that's when you'll get into those middle and bottom layers. Amazon Bedrock brings models, capabilities, and these agent core primitives to bear. Some organizations will prefer to get into Amazon SageMaker to have even more granular control, or build custom software that runs straight down on the bare metal, where we have ML chips like Trainium or Inferentia. So to close up, I do love partners. AWS Agent Marketplace includes solutions from partners like the big names here. It includes innovative startups as well that my team works with, like Anthropic, Lizer, Carini, NLX, and others. Bhavin, Drata is in the AWS Marketplace. We're super happy about that. And you're employing more and more generative AI as we seek to help customers together. So let's turn our attention to GRC and how Drata is thinking about agents.
Yeah, let's definitely do that, Chris. That was a really good overview. Thank you. And we sure love all the AI services and products that AWS and you are providing. So thank you for that partnership. To just give you an example of how we use AWS, like if you look at what we recently released, we had an MCP server that we recently released for our customers. For that, we use ECS and CloudWatch. We are using ECS to host the MCP server and to ensure that can serve all our customers at scale without degrading in quality. We also use CloudWatch to monitor this server and whenever updates are made to ensure it's still running. Also for our agentic vision and the agents that Drata is coming out with, for example, the VRM agent that we're coming out with soon, we also use Bedrock, ECS, and CloudWatch. All our LLM inferencing goes through Bedrock, powering the agent. ECS we use to host our AI services and to ensure the agent keeps running asynchronously for a longer amount of time. That's one of the key features of our agent. And again, we use CloudWatch for observability, monitoring, making sure we can observe the task that agent is doing, and we are able to troubleshoot when things go wrong. So this is just a flavor of how we are using a lot of these AWS services and products that you talked about earlier, Chris. But yeah, this is how we use our technology and what our stack looks like. But let's take a step back and let's look at the AI agents and what impact it would have on GRC programs now and in future. GRC teams today generally look like this. There is a team for risk, a team focused on compliance, another one focused on vendor management, and one possibly focused on monitoring the overall program and performance. A lot of these work items today, or the things that these teams do today, is repetitive and manual. And as a GRC leader, you always wished that your team would spend more time on strategic items like proactively managing the risk and compliance rather than doing this day-to-day task. Agentic AI has real potential to bring this vision to life. So the GRC team of future might look very different. And that future I think is not about replacing the humans, but it's about creating this powerful hybrid teams that leverage the best of both the human expertise and the AI capabilities. You can imagine like each function in the future GRC teams could be assisted or augmented by AI agents. And these AI agents would be doing repetitive tasks while your team actually is managing these agents. And more importantly, is focused on the overall strategy that you're trying to put in place. So at every step of the way, your team would be augmented with the intelligence of the agent. The AI agent will help them execute and also help you make decisions as well. So if you look at what GRC use cases are today, a lot of these involves around manually scoring the risk. It's a lot about manually gathering the evidence or going through the repetitive process of doing the vendor security reviews, whether that's collecting the documents, assessing the documents. But a lot of these processes today are manual. With agentic AI, a lot of these can be AI powered and automated end to end, with your teams managing these agents and providing the oversight where it's needed. For example, there could be a risk management agent. This agent could autonomously create and manage your risk registers with humans always in the loop and approving this. Similarly, there could be a compliance agent that could determine what evidence is needed to satisfy a certain control. It could collect the evidence from the sources as well, so you don't have to. And another example could be a trust agent. So these agent could automate the setup of your trust centers and autonomously do the security reviews end to end. So that's what a future of the GRC team enabled by AI agents could look like. And we at Drata are exactly trying to do that for you. We want to create an automated trust management platform with AI and AI agents at its core. There are four key pillars of our platform. There is continuous compliance with the goal of automating 90% of compliance tasks. There is another pillar of integrated risk management. So you can manage your internal risk or external vendor created risk in a single configurable platform. There is automated governance, which will enable your teams to scale your risk and compliance workflows and manage it in a single platform. And then there is security assurance. This is enabling you to establish trust with your prospective customers and turning your security program into a revenue driver by showing the right security posture to your customers. If we double click that into that a little bit, and where does AI come into this platform? Our AI vision and strategy is threefold. If we start at the bottom, the first layer is around embedded AI. So today's processes which have manual heavy, for example, you have to review a SOC report for your vendor, or you have to answer a security questionnaire from your prospective customers. We want to use AI in these processes to do the automation for you and give you time back. And there are lots of examples like that in our existing product, with more continuously to be added. The second pillar of our vision is AI on demand. What we're trying to do here is to use AI at the point of interaction and the channel or the place that you are in. Not everybody essentially wants to come into the platform and complete the task that they're trying to do. For example, the Drata's MCP server. A lot of our customers want to use natural language clients or LLM clients to get access to data in Drata. So we have an MCP server which they can easily configure to and then ask questions in a natural language form. The second example is the chatbot integration. So whether that's a Slack chatbot or a Teams chatbot, like if you are getting a lot of questions as the security or GRC team within your organizations, you can use features like this to answer questions for rest of your organization in the chat client like Slack or Teams that you are using essentially. So that there are a couple of examples of how we think about embedding AI at the point of interaction that you or your stakeholders are at. The third pillar of a strategy or the vision essentially is the agents that we were just talking about. These agents, the way we think about it is building an agent which can automate the entire end-to-end task. So these are very task-specific agents that will do the work for you. An example is a VRM or a vendor risk management agent, a trust agent, and a compliance agent. And I'll talk about that more. So the goal with the vendor risk management agent essentially is to change the slow, manual, inconsistent, and often not scalable vendor review process and made it fully automated. So our vendor risk management agent will automate the whole process of doing the review, doing the assessment of the vendor, and once they become a vendor, it will continuously monitor for you as well. So in this case, you don't have to do the collection of the documents. You don't have to necessarily send questionnaires. The agent will automatically collect the documents for you, find the evidence for specific criteria that you have set, and then give you an overall assessment of whether the vendor adheres to your criteria or not. The second agent is a trust agent. And the focus of this is essentially to make the security questionnaire process faster and fully orchestrated and real time. A lot of companies already do answering questions. We do as well, but oftentimes a lot of cross-functional teams have to be involved to answer very specific questions. So we need to involve the subject matter from legal team or finance team. Our agent essentially does the orchestration of involving the right people, but also following up with them to ensure that they are providing the answers for you. So you don't have to keep running after these people. So it's able to automate the whole process end to end. And then the last one is around the compliance, which really gets to the core of compliance, which is collecting the evidence from various different sources within your organization, validating the evidence to make sure that the evidence actually satisfies the need of a specific control. It enables audit automation and then helps you maintain your compliance posture, as well as highlights the right things that you need to do when it comes to controls or tests or any task that you have to do. So we're excited about what we are building here at Durata. All of these agents are rolling out in next few months and quarter. So now, as a GRC professional, you're wondering what should you be doing to prepare for this future, which is enabled by the AI agents. And after talking to a lot of CISOs across the industry, as well as talking to our CISO, essentially, like there are a few things that emerge. First step is to document all the tribal knowledge that you and your teams have. Oftentimes, we realize that there are processes that security teams follow, but not all of them is documented. So to start documenting these knowledge, start thinking about templates, steps, or workflows that you follow today that could help guide these agents. Map these processes for risk management, compliance workflows, and then use these documentation and processes to inform the AI agents. So when you use these agents and automation, it follows your processes and it serves your needs. That's all I have, Emily. Just jump into the chat.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. It's really exciting to understand just how GRC teams can work moving forward in the future with all of these agents and new tools at their disposal. So I'd love to lead our fireside chat. We have a couple questions to ask Bhavin and Cress here. I'm going to start with Cress. So Cress, Agentic AI is designed to act on its own, but what guardrails should GRC leaders and teams think about and then put in place to prevent an agent from potentially making a wrong decision when it comes to risk?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually want to start by emphasizing what Bhavin just shared. The idea right now of starting to document what you can, even if it's not in a perfect format, right? Like your technical writers don't have to go in and do it all quite so perfectly, but you've got to have a repository of that custom data because it helps to answer the question that you're asking here. When we think about how to implement guardrails, first, we at AWS start from real, standard security principles, principle of least privilege, right? We want to make sure that agents don't have willy-nilly access to, enterprise data that they shouldn't. So that's why I mentioned like what we're trying to build into Bedrock Agent Core, and what we have built in is this concept of, authentication, authorization, role-based access controls, all those pieces, not just for the beginning of the workflow, but throughout the agentic processing. That's going to be a key. So learning to use those tools and how do you implement them correctly, or working with a partner that can, build that in for you into depending on the level of solution you're trying to build. That's one approach. Having that documentation that we mentioned, you probably are going to start getting into retrieval augmented generation, RAG scenarios, or scenarios where you're going to want the agents to capture memory. So providing the agents with specific examples of like, this is a good answer, this is a good set of data points to share. These are things that, anyway, that type of data is going to be helpful in implementing guardrails. Now, also, Amazon Bedrock, for example, has guardrail functionality. So if you want to disallow it talking about cornflakes, you could disallow that. You can go in and configure so that it doesn't talk about random things. You probably all heard stories about some of these early interfaces, being able to write Python in a customer service interface, things like that. You can disallow that. You can say that you don't want that. Also, as you get past experimentation, you're probably going to start with some off-the-shelf frontier models, right? Like Amazon Nova Premier or some of these models that are, cutting edge. And so you probably are going to work with eventually getting to smaller language models or more domain-specific models, things that, suit your specific need. I am hearing and seeing that as you perform reinforcement learning or continuous pre-training on models, you can actually also protect and get those guardrails to be less necessary. You can get better answers there. So anyway, there's a couple of ideas, both for now and in the future, but ultimately I would say start smart, ensure that you're looking at this the way it is, which is, the stuff going into it is potentially insecure, and you should make sure that you work to secure the stuff going into your agent. And then the stuff coming out of your agent may also need to be reviewed and checked for validity. So don't assume anything. Zero trust principles still apply.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know you sort of alluded to this in your answer, but since agentic AI can analyze vendors faster than humans ever could, should we trust it with some of those critical third-party risk decisions without any human oversight?
Yeah, so for those who may not know, Bhavin and I did another webinar just a little while ago with Pratik from his team, and some of the great decisions that Drata has made, I think, are along these lines. Keeping, especially at the first stab at this, at the first layer that Bhavin showed, making sure that there is a human in the loop, making sure that AI is out doing things and then coming back and saying, here's the things that I've done, check it out, human, and then humans can go and make sure. Now, eventually, you'll refine and improve what you're doing with the models and with agents. Eventually, you'll gain more trust and you'll see that it's more and more competent. Very candidly, the mental model that I use right now is I think of it as a team of people that might be working for me. If I hire, let's say junior folks that are just starting their careers, I'll give them reasonable tasks with reasonable expectations, and I'll probably have to check their work if there's a very advanced thing. So, would I allow that vendor review and decision making to be done by somebody in their first month on the job? Maybe not, right? I might have a more senior analyst come in and help. So I think of it the same way. Like as we start building our agents, checks, having trust but verify. Let's go and validate the different points. Having good evals is what you'll hear talked about, evaluation points. That's where we're talking in AI a lot about evals. Having those checkpoints and figuring out what do I need to verify before I can move on versus where can I say run free and come back to me with a bunch of ideas or a bunch of inputs. those are the decisions we're going to have to make. But I would not start by simply sending it off and saying, good luck, we hope this works.
For sure. And to that point, we just actually had a question come in live from Robert. And he also is wondering, like, along those lines, what are the worries about these agents, as you're talking about them as a team that work for you, of replacing some of the employees that are on a GRC team? Do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
Let's start with Bhavin. Bhavin, how are you looking at that as a leader?
Sure.
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier in my slides, Robert, that I don't think the worry is about agents replacing any GRC employees anytime soon, actually. But it will augment all the GRC employees. And as we talk about what our agents are going to do for the GRC teams, we hear time and again a couple of things, that the teams are really small, and they're unable to do a lot of the work that they want to do, and the work that they're already doing, they're not able to go deep into those work. So for those cases, the agents actually will really help these GRC team members actually do their work in a much better way and much deeper. So I would say that at least anytime soon, like, there is nothing, the agents are not going to replace you, but really it's going to give you superpowers of doing your jobs much better.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bhavin. The way I talk to my partners and different customers about it is, most of us, you probably could complain to your coworkers or your friends about how much work there is to do that you're not getting to. We were just complaining about a little bit right before this webinar. And if we can 10x the amount of work that each of us can do for a little while, that's going to be amazing. Like, I think we're going to expand the frontier of possibilities before we start replacing humans full on. So I'm more interested in helping people and helping myself relearn and reskill. How do I think about the work that I'm doing? Where are the pieces that I can outsource and automate that before it might have been too cost prohibitive to outsource? But as agents become easier and faster and better and cheaper, I'm going to want that research project to be done automatically and just come back to me in a day or two, rather than having to assign my team to go out and capture a bunch of inputs. At Amazon, for example, we have a very heavy writing culture. There's a lot of writing and a lot of reading going on. Well, we still want high quality writing. We don't want any AI slop, so to speak, right? So you've all probably seen some of that out there. But the idea that, again, I can have an agent research, gather the data, using my established data sources, using the things that I allow it to do, and then maybe going out and researching on the public internet if needed, and then coming back to me and saying, like a junior analyst would, here's the data that you need to start doing this discussion. That's a very powerful way to augment what we're doing, I think.
Yes, completely. And back to Bhavin, speaking of those teams that have so many tasks that they can't get anything done, at Drata, we're working closely with companies that are still tied into those legacy GRC platforms. What are you seeing in terms of their challenges and how agentic AI can potentially change the game for them compared to, like, some of the past AI waves we've seen in the industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we certainly see a lot of customers who work with legacy GRC platforms. And when we chat with or talk with them, we see three top themes that emerge. The first one is just lack of automation, whether that is automated evidence collection through integrations and test, or evidence validation, or automated mapping of various different objects like requirements to controls and policies and risks, etc. So AI agent actually can help a lot of with these automations. The second theme we see is something that I was touching upon earlier, is the ability to scale the existing processes. For example, vendor reviews. Like, it's very hard for some of our enterprise customers who do hundreds or thousands of vendor reviews a year to scale these processes, especially when they have really small teams. So this is a great opportunity to use agentic AI to automate a lot of these tasks. But at the same time, as we were saying, the human is always in the loop to provide oversight. But a lot of the manual work that people have to do, that can be automated. The third theme we also see is ability for these customers to customize or configure the platforms that they're using. One real good example of that is an evergreen need of like custom reporting and dashboarding, something that customers expect from a lot of SaaS platforms, but it's not necessarily something that is common. So they might not get it out of the SaaS platform. So with advent of things like model context protocol or MCP, agents are really able to unlock this need of creating custom reporting and dashboarding. So with a LLM client powered by an MCP server, now a user is able to create this custom reporting and dashboarding. So these are three themes and many more we see with existing customers who use legacy platforms. And I think AI agents can have really big impact on this.
If I can augment that, I love that. I agree, Bhavin. Just about, I don't work in GRC all the time, not as directly. So like just from a broader perspective, I'll share something that I recommend business leaders look for is where are the edges of systems where there's not a clean API, right? If I can make a clean API call back and forth, like we've solved that for the most part, that's fine. We have, millions of developers working on those. But where I have maybe humans have to take in data, do the data entry, translate that data in some way, like wherever you find those parts of your business process is a ripe, looking ground for you to find agentic workflows that can be very powerful. So again, like we said, we have to be thoughtful about that, but those are really low-hanging fruit most of the time. I see examples in medicine. Obviously lots of people talking to doctors trying to type and think at the same time. Like obviously there's a regulation and legislation around that we have to be very careful in. But even in accounts receivable departments, for example, you get purchase orders or requisition documents, and they're in different formats. They're different. We have teams of humans right now that have to spend a lot of time just reading what's on a page and translating it into some numbers and words. Those kind of where there's no API, there's definitely an option to look around and see what you can do with agents. That's one way to think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And Chris, I know you said you don't work in GRC all the time or with GRC teams all the time, but in your work, if you had to help future-proof a GRC team or your GRC team there at Amazon for AI native enterprises today, what's the single skill set or mindset that you'd tell them to start building immediately?
Ooh, that's a good question. Again, it may seem cliche a little, but like I said earlier, like thinking like a leader of teams of people or teams of agents is kind of the mental model shift that I think a lot of people put their head down, hit the keyboard and start solving problems. But as you step back and say, how can I solve this, or what components of this problem can I solve? Learning that skill is actually critical, I think, for everybody. Like that's what I advocate that to my children, to the people I mentor. I think we all need to stop trying to solve as many problems on our own with our own fingers and minds and try to step back and say, how do I empower these tools to solve parts of this problem or compose the problem and the solution and put it together for me? That's one aspect. More specifically along those lines, I'd share with everybody, if you didn't catch the wave of prompt engineering and learn it, I do recommend everybody start practicing prompt engineering, like start to learn, how can I get the right output from this model, whatever model you choose to use? How do I get there by improving or modifying the prompt that I'm putting in? A lot of the work you'll do with an agentic platform is going to be, once you get all this infrastructure in place that we talked about, like the real work is you have expertise. You have to give it enough information. You have to put enough information in your agent to enable it to succeed. Well, a lot of that is where your expertise is going to really play. And so how do you convey that? We talked about documenting. You could call it the same, different facets of the same concept, but learning how to get what you want out of an LLM or out of a foundational model, I think is great practice that everyone can do today. You can go to, I think, nova.amazon.com and start playing with ours and just start figuring out, how do I get what I want out of this thing? Because that will eventually translate into more familiarity with like, oh, how do I think about deploying these agents and solving that? So there's a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, if I may add to that, Chris and Billy, I think there are a couple of things that we consistently see among our customers who are AI forward, essentially, is they are enabling their teams with all the tools available at their hands, essentially, which is whether that's a ChatGPT client, that is Claude, and let them experiment with those. And in case where you feel like the use cases that you're trying to use them for are not outputting as you expected, essentially, keep at it, because the models are continuously improving. Actually, something that is not you're not able to do today with AI, you will be able to at some point in near future. The rate at which things are innovating and changing, and yeah, keep an open mind, use the tools, and also demand a lot more AI from the tools that you're using, GRC platforms that you're using. Use the features available in there and demand more from them as well.
Awesome. And Bhavin, a question actually had just come in, like, as a leader or just a team member, for the more technical side of AI and AI agents, do you both have some suggestions of training resources that folks could go to just to learn more about that, just that deeper technical knowledge?
Yeah, there are a lot of training resources out there, actually. When I share with my teams internally at Drata, essentially, there are a couple of courses that we always advocate. Anthropic has a really good course, actually, on prompt engineering, AI agents. Similarly, Andrew Nee has a really good course on Coursera, essentially. But there is a lot of content out there, actually. So start somewhere, actually, and these are a couple of ones where you can start, but there is no dearth of content available out there on getting up to speed on this. Do you have anything, any favorites, Chris?
Yeah, well, as the AWS guy, I have to recommend that we have AWS Skill Builder. If you go search for Skill Builder, AWS, you'll find it. And we have AI courses and training available. Obviously, it leans, towards, the solutions that we offer, but it's a good way to get started with kind of foundational things. You can select which part. To Bhavin's point, there's so much content out there. I would not get lost trying to find the perfect content. I would just start consuming some content. And like I said, if you don't know where to start with how do I use whatever public, interface you want, such as nova.amazon.com. How do I use it to get something useful that I want to do out of it? And as you start chewing on that and thinking about that, you'll find questions that you need to ask, and then ask the AI. Say, where should I learn about XYZ? And that's a trick that I use. Not even a trick. It's just something I do all the time. And I used to think, oh, I know where it's going to point me. I know, and it sometimes is the typical places. But more and more, as these tools improve, it's coming to me with summaries, with great, links to resources and things like that. So, yeah, there's a lot of talking heads. There's a lot of information, but don't wait for the perfect. Just start learning and building and figuring out what you can, because there's nothing like hands on a keyboard to really figure it out.
Really great advice and great resources from both of you. So thank you. Bhavin, I want to come back to you. So based on what you're seeing with some of the Drata customer base, which GRC workflows are already proving realistic to hand over to AI agents for these customers? And which ones are you seeing that really still need that human oversight?
Yeah, that's a good question. I generally believe, as you were talking earlier, that human oversight should be in all workflows, essentially. Don't take yourself out of any workflows, but hand off a lot of manual heavy lifting that you do today to AI agents, but still be in the loop. Having said that, there are few patterns definitely developing when it comes to GRC specific tasks that you can hand over to AI agents. The first one is the security questionnaires. When you are answering security questionnaires for your prospective customers, there is a lot of work involved for that. It's a perfect example of handing something over to the agent. Let the agent feed the agent with your knowledge base, your documents, and let the agent use that to fill out these questionnaires for you, follow up with subject matter experts, and get this into really good state for you. And then you come in at the very end to make sure everything looks good before you send it back to your prospective customers. Similarly, another area is the reverse use case of that, which is when you are trying to evaluate a potential vendor that one of your teams within the org is trying to use. Again, there is a lot of documents involved where you have to review the documents that they have sent, find the evidence of that, or the questions that they have answered for you. Is another great opportunity where AI agents can save you a lot of time, because they're really good at finding information, researching things within the documents or something that is out there for you. This today takes a lot of time from you. Hand this off to the AI agents and then just come again at the tail end when it has done all the assessment, just confirm that this conforms to what your expectations are, and then do the acceptance of the vendor. One area where I think a lot more human judgment today is still involved is the GRC processes where the context of the domain itself needs to be used actually. The AI, all the AI models out there are trained on generic knowledge. It knows a lot about pretty much every topic out there. But sometimes when you go deeper into certain topics, that's when it doesn't necessarily have that expertise on that. So understanding a specific framework actually and what is the requirement specifically trying to look for when it comes to evidence or controls that you have in place. I think this area, I would suggest that you stay in the loop a lot more compared to the other areas, especially because getting this wrong can result into an audit failure or more work for you. So it's extremely critical. So, and especially it requires deep context and the knowledge of the industry itself and the domain. That's one area where I think a lot more human oversight is needed today. It's still, the agents can still help you with a bunch of things, but I suggest that you stay in the loop for these kind of things a lot more compared to the other two use cases I was talking about.
Great. And Cress, is there anything you'd like to add there?
Oh, goodness. Well, for specific workflows, again, I don't think I have anything GRC off the top of my head, but again, I look at these scenarios wherever you have, fuzzy data on the edge and you'd like to convert that, or you have to manually convert it. And like Bhavin is saying, like if you have to fill out a security questionnaire, that's a great candidate where I would say like, human just has to map data that I have over here to some format over here. That matchup, we're not going to waste the energy to write an API for it. And now generative AI will do it for you a lot. I can say one angle to this, if I thought out loud, AWS Marketplace, right? We have partners like Drata selling in our marketplace. We have customers coming in and saying, hey, we want these solutions, but we're not sure. Does it meet our security requirements? Does it satisfy our framework? And so we, AWS, in fact, we're working with Drata and other partners to make that process better. And I see lots of room for agents to be working there. I think we already have some stuff that I don't know if I can disclose, but there's lots of innovation that we're working on like that to improve pieces of the process and make sure that we move faster, especially when you talk about AWS scale. We're not talking about dozens or even hundreds of transactions, right? We're talking about millions of transactions. So the more we can push into agents and trust that we're getting good data and good responses back, that's definitely a focus of ours.
Great. Well, thank you both very much for all these insights. And this leads us right into our live Q&A. And I have just a couple questions I'd like to ask, but the first one, which really is a stem of what you've all just been talking about, is what about the mistakes that an AI agent might make or an AI-driven mistake? How should GRC leaders prepare for those mistakes? And just what are things that they should think about?
I can take
I'll start, Bhavin, because you have better answers than me. So I'll kick it off real quick.
Sounds good.
So I think, you can only see around so many corners in life, but you want to spend some time thinking about this. I would recommend even take your scenario inside your company and use, the chat interface you have with an LLM and go ideate some of the challenges that it will see. If you ask Anthropic's Claude, for example, some of the latest models, if you ask it to be a leader in GRC and look for X, this challenge or that challenge, what other challenges does it see? It'll actually come up with some interesting ideas that might inspire you. So that concept of wrapping back and forth with AI can actually help us to see more and more things. But I think, Bhavin, I know you have some great examples as well.
Yeah, I like what you said, Chris. I would say I'll add that there are three things you should look for trying to avoid mistakes with AI-driven workflows and agents. The first one is just observability. Whether it's a solution that you are developing for yourself within the company or you're using any vendor of yours for any workflows or automation, like ask for observability. The agent should be telling you what it's doing, where it got the information from, and cite the sources, so you know what it did. The second aspect of that is ask for their evals and how they tested their systems, what their process is around to make sure that the features that they're releasing, how do they test it and ensure it's all accurate and reliable. And then the third aspect is just the escape hatch. We talked about like the human oversight at any point of time. So anytime you are either developing a solution again or using somebody else's product, ask for how can I revert any decision that AI made. So not only just understanding how it made the decision and how did it come to the conclusion, but also ask for reverting that decision as well. So that will just ensure that they have tested the product well. AI is explaining and also gives you a way to change the decision in case it's needed.
And whenever you can, like what I love about what Bhavin and his team have done is like, you still have to decompose problems into, parts, into components. I think of it as like, we have to still break these down into different pieces. I don't think we're quite there where we can send out AI to say, go solve this whole thing and come back with an answer. So to Bhavin's point about observability, I'm not worried about observability over this giant problem space where I don't know what's happening. Instead, I'm isolating and trying to figure out if it solved problem A well, and then I'm taking that and getting into space B and space C, and then with your vendors or with providers, trying to figure out how are they approaching the problem. Where are those evals and checkpoints? I still think that's a very, very good way to think.
Yeah, and then that's also one of the philosophies that we follow as we are developing AI agents is like, hey, whenever agent is doing something, like it has to continuously keep telling you that, hey, I did X, I did Y, here is why I did it. So not just telling you towards the very end of the process, here is everything that I did, but actually telling you while it's in real time doing the stuff. Correct. So I really like that point.
Yeah, really great answers. Thank you. We also had a question that came in from Sean. And Bhavin, this was directed towards the Drata solutions, but I think, in just these last few minutes, this can be our last question. And I'd love, Cress, for you to chime in from the Amazon side of things as well. But Sean was wondering, Bhavin, when you were talking about the AI vision and the agents that Drata is going to be releasing here over the next couple months, what standards are you all using to inform the build of these solutions and agents?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Sean. So I'll answer it in two parts. So one is the standards itself. So our company has to adhere to ISO, NIST, and all the other standards that are out there that specifically test for AI features and how AI is used in a certain product. So that's how we adhere to. But while developing the product along with these standards, like we have our own philosophy on how we want to develop AI features in our product, so our customers feel confident about using these features. So there are few core tenets of that. Like the first is safety, trust, and reliability. We want to make sure that our AI, any data that is using is safe to use. Any process automation or any outcomes that is providing is reliable. So our customers feel confident when they're using it. The second aspect of that is fairness and no bias. We want to make sure that irrespective of the customer, the industry that they are in, all the outcomes are fair and it's inclusive. And then the third aspect is just about the quality. We touched upon evals a little bit earlier, and that is core to our philosophy that any product or any features that is AI driven that we're developing, it's fully tested. And then we have our own rubric when we test on this eval in terms of accuracy, reliability, hallucination, and a lot more other aspects of how we confirm that it's behaving and operating as we expected. So these are just some of the key tenets of our philosophy when it comes to developing AI features. But those are the two aspects, adhering to standards, but also having a very clear philosophy on how we want to develop AI features.
Absolutely. Yeah, at Amazon, we obsess about customers and we believe very strongly that earning trust is extremely important, right? Trust can be cultivated for years. It can all be broken in an instant if you're not careful. And so we treasure our trust with customers. We strive to do the best that we can to make decisions from a technological point of view and the way we implement our services that enable you both to trust us, but also to build trustworthy apps. So principles of responsible AI, as Bhavin mentioned, ensuring that we reduce or eliminate bias as much as possible, especially when we talk about training our own models and the work that we're doing firsthand, or enabling you to have tools for fine-tuning or model training, like in SageMaker or some of our bare metal tools, making sure that you can choose data sets and the type of data that you want to bring in there, and helping you understand how to cultivate and capture that data. And of course, we work with many, many partners that you may find yourself very aligned to a certain partner in their approach and their philosophy. And so bringing those tools into the AWS solution set can help. But I think it's very important to be thoughtful while we move fast, right? We're striving to move quickly. There's a ton of innovation going on. I think it's great to experiment and do our best, but considering the impact is absolutely core to how we want to approach AI, and making sure that we're putting out good solutions that what does good mean, right? Can be very subjective, but definitely not causing harm, ensuring that we're adhering to agreed upon responsible AI principles. Anyway, it's very core to what we believe is important, and we try to enable all of our partners and customers to live by that.
Great. Awesome. Well, we're at the end of our discussion today. I just want to say thank you to all of you who took some time out of your busy days to join us today. And a huge thank you to Crest and Bhavin for sharing such valuable insights on both the Drata and the AWS solution, and just your philosophy and theory on AI and AI agents. If anybody has any more questions, we've got a short URL here. You can talk directly with the Drata team and we can get your questions answered. We'll be sending out a link to the recording tomorrow in an email. So you'll have the recording if you want to watch it again or share it with your team. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you at the next event. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.